I wanted to do some sort of milestone or big thing to mark drawing every day for 100 days, and like the sick man I am, I decided to do a little experimenting with the good old program Live 2D Cubism. But before we get to that and you get to listen to me yell about how I spent an entire day yelling at my screen because of a bug, let me reflect on the past 100 days. I started this whole draw every day for a year challenge on a whim after finishing my Draw Ceres Fauna every day until she graduated challenge. And let me tell you, it's not been all sunshine and rainbows. There are a lot of days where I just don't know what to draw, so I just pick some random thing to practice. My learning time has definitely not been super focused, but I have started to pick up methods that work for me for the most part. I've been rigorously consuming art improvement YouTube videos and picking and choosing what to try that I think will help or just to try it. And I found some semblance of a process, which is just redrawing the same drawing over and over again to notice places of improvement or things that I think could be better or that I just don't like and just want to draw again. And instead of erasing it and picking away at things because I go, oh wow, this just sucks, I just finish that layer as it stands and then I do it again to fix my mistake or the thing that I don't like until eventually I get something that I am happy with. I like this process of redrawing it and refining it because it helps alleviate the pressure of just having to get it right immediately, because I'm still very much learning how to draw. So it's a lot of moments where I go, wow, this leg looks really off, or well, this specific part is just wrong. And instead of erasing it and trying to finagle it into the shape that it should be, I can just fix it on the next go around and repeat until I'm happy with whatever I've drawn. But as of 100 days in, if you had to ask my biggest weaknesses or places to improve, I would have too many to list off, which is just the double-edged sword of becoming better at something because there's the universe in front of you to learn. I'm just bad at everything, but at that point it's where do I pick to start improving? And regardless, I can definitely feel the inches of improvement that I'm making, but it's still very slow. The most noticeable weaknesses are colors are kind of flat, / I kind of don't really know how clothes, shading and all that works, if it's not from reference like most things. But then there's also like, I still only kind of understand how to draw most limbs. I usually just draw it too skinny or too wide. And I think a bunch of that will just come from practice of doing that enough to the point of where I innately understand it, or at least have a better frame of reference. On this Rosaria fan art I did, what I ended up doing was that I just drew the legs so badly that I just cut them off at the illustration. I went, you don't need to see these, they look bad, so you just don't get to. And all of this brings us to the very first Vtuber model, which is very much a first attempt. Before I get into the process of making that, I need to rant about the worst day I had drawing in a while. So I use Procreate to draw on my iPad, and like a normal person that had followed some YouTube tutorials, they say, oh, export it as a PSD file. So I did that from Procreate and stuck it into Live 2D, and it didn't work. And I spent all day getting increasingly frustrated with it before stepping away because I was in a primal state of rage and figured I wasn't getting any work done. So I went and watched the look back twice, and then about 15 minutes before I'm headed to bed, I find this YouTube video that explains the exact problem I had and how to fix it. However, the story is not done yet. The next day, I plug the file into GIMP, the main application I use for making thumbnails and stuff, because it's free and that's what I've used for so long, it's too hard to shake the habit now. So I export as a PSD from there, and it doesn't work either. So finally, I just whip out the back pocket trip of Clip Studio Paint that I have on every computer but rarely use. And then I adjust the canvas size like the video says and save it as a PSD and send that over to Live 2D, and it magically works. And I wanted to scream so loud, but I am in a house of other people, so I did not. Now let's talk about the Vtuber model itself. I almost exclusively use Chepaco's tutorials, and I am immensely grateful for them because they were so helpful and informative to the process, even if my model is very much not optimized for becoming a Vtuber. Almost immediately I ran into the very fun problem of not making things symmetrical, which isn't exactly a problem as much as it basically just doubles the work that I need to do. For some parts of the face it doesn't matter as much because for certain things like the mouth, the colon 3 shape was a much bigger pain than I thought. I also added some skin to the mouth, which from the tutorial as I watched was not the move, or at least not how I did it. Admittedly, I only referenced the checklist when designing the first model and immediately was like, damn, I probably should have just followed a video to do it. A lot of them just plugged in the symmetry stuff and then did all the mirroring for them. The rest of the rigging process was admittedly fairly straightforward following tutorials, but realizing that every step of the way that I was doing it wrong, or not necessarily wrong from the art level, but suboptimally. It wasn't exactly bad, as it was more effort than it needed to be. But I'm also jumping from beginner artist to beginner live 2D puppet master, so a lot of the disconnect was both my lack of skill as an artist feeding into problems with other aspects. Like making the underbrow a single line was not helpful. And also not knowing what all to clip, because like half the tutorials go, make sure to clip everything, and suddenly I'm very lost because they've clipped like 80 things and I have no idea what they were. I went through an entire eye rigging tutorial before I realized that I had to clip the eyes so that they would look normal instead of crushing them like a grape under my eyebrow. So many of my problems would have been solved by knowing what things to clip together and also just how to do it better. But honestly, for my level of skill, I did okay. It definitely doesn't look good, but it works to some extent. It's very telling through that almost immediately after starting, I went, fuck, this is awful, and just started drawing a new model, which honestly was a surprisingly effective tool to get me to improve my art because it gives me immediate things to work on. I can see a problem and go, God, I hate how this looks, or God, this is a pain to rig, and go from there to make it better for the next one. But now to talk about the model itself, because I think conceptually I had really good ideas. My hands are just not at the level to match them yet. So aesthetically, I had two main characters, so I basically yoinked their color palettes and applied them to my own model. I took Rosaria Genshin Impact's hair colors because I really like them, and I took Yui Shosetsu's 3rd Ascension clothes color palette because I like how it looks. I love the blue and red contrast, and that drew me to taking it for my own because I wanted to use those colors for a lot of things, and so I finally did. Beyond that, I had two major character design aspects that I wanted to incorporate. The first was making a mechanical body because the whole lore behind this is that I'm making new bodies for myself, so it makes sense for the character to be non-human since I'm crafting it to make it look how I want and suiting my whims for whatever I want to do. The second idea ties into it with the idea of kintsugi and using gold to fill in cracks. This is more aesthetic, but it ties in with that theme of iterating on the past. Instead of just scrapping the past models, there's pieces of the old molded into the new. I also just love how it looks aesthetically. I really wanted to stick with the idea of things being remade or crafted because I think it ties into my whole art journey nicely. As time goes on, my art will get better, and in turn the model should too, but it is built upon the past models and growth from that. Now, if you'll allow me to do my mandatory haiku mention, this model in the process of making a new one that grows my art ability is just Kiya Shinsuke's idea that everything is a process and that results will come over the accumulation of endless practice. As I practice and get better, naturally my art will also get better. Drawing every day is a struggle sometimes, but I've made a routine out of it, and eventually results will come from the process. It could be days, months, years from now, but I'll get better over time. And I think that tying that notion into the model as this character that's constantly evolving helps remind me, and it feels like the result of the practice, or at the very least a milestone. After 100 days of drawing, I have a thing to look at and go, this is where I'm at now. I still have 265 days left to go, and that's 265 days of practice. I don't know how my art will look by then, but it'll hopefully be better. Hopefully, at least, my distorted sense of self-esteem will let me see that it has improved, but for now I'm going to try to keep making a model that I can look at and be proud of, and that also isn't a massive pain to rig.